Welcome to the Dragon Quest series Quick Start Guide. So you want to get into the Dragon Quest series? A great decision, but jumping into a series that has been running for 34 years can be quite overwhelming. That's where I come in. In this video, I'll go over all the core games in the series, which ones serve as good jumping in points, and what version I recommend of each game. I won't be covering the spin-offs or going into detailed breakdowns of the version differences here, as this is just meant to be a simple entry point. However, if people are interested, I can cover the spin-offs and version differences in another video. To prevent some confusion, Dragon Quest was known as Dragon Warrior in the West up until Dragon Quest VIII on the PS2 in 2005, and from then on is known as Dragon Quest in both the West and Japan. Normally, I'd start at the start, but I suspect most people will be curious about Dragon Quest XI as the definitive version has just come out, so we'll start there. Dragon Quest XI is a great game to jump into the series with. As it's the most recent entry, it's the most advanced graphically and mechanically of the games, which makes it very welcoming to new players. Its core story and characters are all self-contained, and you won't miss out on anything having not played another Dragon Quest game before. However, the 3DS, Switch, and definitive editions of XI include bonus content in the form of Tickington, a town that allows players to experience short adventures in the worlds of the other Dragon Quest games. These are still fun, even if you're not aware of the context, but are clearly designed to be an entertaining bit of fan service for long-term fans of the series. They are a self-contained story and do not affect the overall plot of the game. Now, as for what version of Dragon Quest XI to play, that's easy. The Switch or Definitive Edition. The Definitive Edition being available on PS4, PC, and Xbox. Do not get it confused with the base game, however. Make sure you get the Definitive Edition as it has a lot of extra content. Now we'll jump back to the start. Dragon Quest I, II, and III are the only directly related trilogy in the franchise, referred to as the Roto Trilogy. So if you're looking to play 1, 2, or 3, I highly recommend starting with 1 and playing through to 3, as you'll get the most out of it that way. The trilogy, both gameplay and story-wise, represents the evolution of Dragon Quest as a series and JRPGs as a genre fantastically. As these 3 games are the oldest in the series, there are many different versions of each. I would highly recommend you play the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo ports, as they are the best looking graphically, and the Super Famicom version of 3 is the only version to have the animated combat sprites for the enemies. The Super Famicom versions are also more mechanically friendly than the original Famicom release, making them much more playable. All 3 of these have fan translations available, and links to the patches can be found in the video description below. Next up is Dragon Quest IV, V, and VI, which make up an informal trilogy called the Sky Castle Trilogy, or more commonly known as the Zenithia Trilogy in English. These 3 games are not story-related in any direct sense, but all share the Sky Castle Zenithia as a location and plot element. While these 3 games make up a trilogy, you can play them in any order, and don't need to play the other games in the trilogy to get the full experience out of any one of them. Dragon Quest IV, V, and VI all work as great entry points into the series, so if any of them catch your fancy, by all means, jump right in. Now, for what version to play? Dragon Quest IV is easy. The DS version is the best version, so go with that. For Dragon Quest V, things are a little more complicated. The PS2 version is, in my opinion, the best, and has a full symphonic soundtrack incorporated into the game, which sets it head and shoulders above the other versions. And there is a fan translation available for it, which is linked below. However, the DS version has an additional character. While she does not change the overall plot much, this may push you towards the DS version, and if so, then by all means, go for it. Last of the Zenithia trilogy, Dragon Quest VI is also a simple recommendation. Go with the DS version, no questions here. Dragon Quest VII is next on our list. While you can absolutely jump into this game without having played another Dragon Quest title, I wouldn't recommend it. 7 is by far the longest Dragon Quest game, to the point that its script is so huge it's enshrined in the Enix offices. While there is no story reason not to start with 7, I would recommend holding off until you're more familiar with the Dragon Quest series mechanically before tackling this beast, as not only is it long, but it's also quite hard. Dragon Quest VII is tricky when it comes to which version to recommend as well. Personally, I recommend the PlayStation version. It's longer and harder, which results in a more rewarding experience, but it may be too much for some people. The 3DS version makes the game much easier, but I feel it's a more watered down experience overall. However, as mentioned above, VII is not an easy game, so if you just want to experience it rather than conquer it, the 3DS version is the way to go. Dragon Quest VIII. For a lot of Western fans of the series, this was their first entry, as the Western PS2 release got a big marketing push, as well as having serious improvements over the Japanese PS2 release. Is it a good game to start with? Absolutely. Many people did, and there's no reason not to. It introduces a bunch of new mechanics that evolves the series further. What gets difficult with VIII is which version to go with. The 3DS version has more content and improved mechanics, but inferior graphics and soundtrack. The PS2 version runs at a higher resolution and has the full symphonic soundtrack. However, if you're willing to dig around, there are fan patches for the 3DS version that add the orchestral soundtrack back in, amongst a few other things. Can be a bit complicated to get set up, but if you're able to do so, then the modified 3DS version would be the one to go with. Else, stick with the PS2 version. The next title is very straightforward. Dragon Quest IX is perfect to jump into for new players. It has many features unique to the game, as well as many features borrowed from previous entries in the series. It is effectively a culmination of the series up to that point. As with most DQ games, it has a standalone story and works great as an entry point. The version question for IX is very easy as well. DS version, it's the only version. There are no ports or remakes for Dragon Quest IX, so DS version is the go. Dragon Quest X, however, is rather unfortunate. It's an MMO available on many platforms, but has never received an English release in any form. As it is an MMO, it requires a subscription fee to play, though it does have a lot of its early content available free to play. It is Japanese only, which will be a real barrier to entry for most. If you're willing to break out some translation tools and sift through some guides, it's quite possible to play even with very limited Japanese knowledge, but for most people, Dragon Quest X is just not viable, unfortunately. The game has been out for 8 years at this point, so an official English release is very unlikely. And with that, we've covered all the mainline numbered entries into the Dragon Quest series. Hopefully, you have an idea of where you'd like to start and are itching to get going. So don't let me keep you. Good luck on your adventure, hero. As always, thanks for watching everyone, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.